All right, chapter 19, we're going to talk about Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR, and the New Deal. As FDR promises people that he's got a new deal for them, something new that will help them out as he becomes president. So let's find out what's going on. Roosevelt takes over in 1932. The United States is a disastrous wreck in the middle of the Great Depression. 25% unemployment, farmers in a disastrous mess as they are overproducing their products, so the prices are very low. They're also in the middle of the Dust Bowl, in the middle of the country. High tariffs on trade. We're put high tariffs on foreign trade. Other countries are putting tariffs on our products, which causes a decrease in international trade. There's very little trade going on. 44% of banks are closed. The banking collapse is beginning to spread worldwide as the Great Depression is not only happening in the United States, it's going worldwide. Roosevelt steps into a mess. So it is a big, disastrous problem as Roosevelt takes over. Pause here. Roosevelt calls his plan the New Deal. Basic idea is to change the role of government. Government historically has played very little role. It was up to you to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, to get yourself together, to do something. Roosevelt says the government's going to get involved and help solve some of these problems. They're too big for you. You can't handle them. You need help. Roosevelt tells his people in this first inaugural address, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. We can do this. So the New Deal is going to change the way the government helps. Instead of providing indirect help, they're going to provide direct help to people. They're going to hire people. The government is going to become a large employer. They're going to provide direct payments. They're going to help people out directly, get involved in their lives and do something. So the government is going to become much more active in this New Deal. Pause here. This is a lot for people to swallow. And Roosevelt knows that if it's going to happen, he's going to have to take his case to the public and convince them that this is the right direction to go. So he starts something called Fireside Chats. Fireside Chat, the basic idea is everybody used to sit around by their fireside at night, listen to the radio. So Roosevelt is going to come to you, have a little chat with you. He's going to join you in your living room and talk to you. These radio addresses, the Fireside Chats, it's where FDR tells people what he's doing, and why they should support him. He urges them to write to their congressman. He urges them to write to him, to tell them what do you need, what do you want, what's going on. Where Hoover got 8,000 letters a month, FDR is getting 80,000 letters a month, as thousands of Americans pour out their heart to Roosevelt and say, help. Some have criticized him because he's not helping enough, but FDR is talking to people in their living room on the radio. He's the first one to take advantage of radio, the first president to make a radio address. Okay? In these addresses where he's explaining policy is relatively complicated. He's speaking in a very clear, simple language. He wants to make sure everybody understands. And he's trying to make this as simplistic as possible so people can figure out what he's talking about. So we're going to give you an example of one of those addresses to listen to, his first one, actually. You'll get a chance to listen to it and see the tone of voice he uses, the way he speaks, and how he delivers his message. These are going to be very influential. He's going to use them during his entire presidency to communicate some very important information to the people. Pause here. Let's take a look at some of the things that Roosevelt did. One of the largest ones is something called the Works Progress Administration. Spends $11 billion to employ people. Employs over 8 million workers. It's government money employing workers to do anything. And when I say anything, I mean anything that they could think of. They build airports, they build roads, they work on public building projects, they go to national forests and work in national forests and national parks. They sell apples on the corner. They do anything. Anything is work. Roosevelt's idea is that he doesn't want people to become too dependent on direct handouts. He wants them to work for their money, and he's like, let's use government money to give them something to do, anything to do. And that's, a lot of people the only way they're going to make it through this Great Depression is they have some sort of job. And like I said, it could be anything. They were doing anything they could think of, any job they could create, anything that they can make up to hire people, to give them an opportunity to make some money. He even went so far as like the Federal Arts Project, where professional artists are hired to create art. The federal government is literally paying for artists to do something. He's trying to employ anyone to do anything. So the Works Progress Administration, an important example of that. It's a blitz of programs. In the first 100 days, Roosevelt puts up a ton of legislation and programs and things he's trying to get done. He's trying to kickstart the economy any way he can, pumping federal money into the economy in hopes that this will get people back to work, will get businesses back to producing things, to get the bank straightened out. He's going to do all kinds of things. So the Works Progress Administration, one of the more important pieces of legislation he passes. Pause here. Some programs are designed to bring the nation out of depression over time. The Agricultural Adjustment Administration is one of those programs. It's designed to help farmers, and it was an interesting way to help farmers. Farmers had overproduced things. There were too many farmers. New machinery had made the yield on crops go up tremendously, so the farmers were producing way too much stuff. So if they were ever going to get out of it, the prices are going to have to rise in agriculture, and the only way you can do that is to literally plow under crops. You have to cut down the supply to raise the price. So FDR is basically paying farmers to plow under crops, okay, and kill livestock, large slaughters of livestock. The idea is, in the long run, this will help. We got to cut down the supply of livestock. We got to cut down the supply of crops. This is one of the things you can see where Roosevelt's attacking this from all angles. He's trying to help all people all over. This particular legislation is designed to help farmers. So the Agricultural Adjustment Administration. Pause here. One of the big things, and the first thing actually that Roosevelt tackled, was the bank problem. A lot of things to jump into the banking industry. The first thing Roosevelt does in day one of his presidency is close all the banks and orders the creation of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the FDIC. The FDIC is designed to monitor the soundness of banks, to check to see if these banks should be in operation and if they have enough money to cover their deposits. He actually makes a new part of the FDIC is to federally insure people's bank deposits, so that if the bank goes under, you don't lose all your money. The federal government will pay you back and give you the money that you had deposited in the bank, up to a certain amount. But these things are going to help solidify the banks, because without some sort of control of currency and some sort of credit, you can't operate. Nothing can happen. People have lost all their money in banks. The banks can't pay them out what they put in. The FDIC is going to straighten out the banks, get them back in shape, and in some cases loan the banks money so they can give the money back to the people who deposited it. So the FDIC is coming into play here. Very important piece of legislation. Pause here. Another thing that's going to come up a little later is the Social Security Act. There's going to be a lot of critics, we're going to talk about those critics in a second, of the New Deal and what it doesn't do for the elderly. The elderly are in bad shape. So Roosevelt's going to come up with something called the Social Security Act, which is still in effect today. Three major parts of the Social Security Act is, first, an old age insurance, anybody 65 and older. It's a retirement plan. Half of the money that goes into each person's Social Security account, half comes from the worker, half comes from the employer. This is going to give people an opportunity to retire. They're putting their own money away to retire, and their employer is matching with half. This is, again, still in effect today. There's the unemployment compensation system. So this is funded by taxpayers, administered at the state level. Unemployment. So if you are unemployed, the state, for a time while you're looking for a job, will give you some sort of payment to keep you afloat. Again, this is still part of our system. This is unemployment. There's also aid to families with dependent children and the disabled. This is all part of the Social Security Act, trying to help out those people who are most in need that don't have anything. This is huge. This is called the security blanket. That's what most people call this, to retirees, to the unemployed, and to families who need help. Big piece of administration. It changes the way we look at everything, because now the government is stepping in to do these things, whereas before all these people had to depend on themselves and or private charity. Now the government's going to step in to help the old age, the elderly, the unemployed, and families with children and disabled children. Big deal, Social Security. Okay, pause here.